"Hey, get out of here right now! You don't belong here!" The shout cracked like thunder inside the polished car dealership showroom, rattling against the glass walls and echoing off the chrome and leather of luxury vehicles lined up like trophies. The voice came from a manager whose finger jabbed toward the glass doors, his face twisted with arrogance. Customers froze mid-step. Employees paused mid-sentence. All eyes turned to a black man in a navy blue suit, standing calm, silent, unshaken. What the manager didn't know, what would turn his world upside down in a matter of hours, was that the man he was humiliating wasn't a wanderer, wasn't an unworthy guest. He was the new owner of the entire dealership. And before we dive into this storm of arrogance, humiliation, and the ultimate reversal of power, smash that subscribe button, turn on all notifications, and comment where you're watching from. Because this story will grip you, move you, and remind you that justice always comes, even when it walks in quietly through the front door. Marcus Bennett was not a man who had been handed life on a silver platter. His beginnings were as far from privilege as the earth is from the stars. Born in a rough part of the city, Marcus grew up in a neighborhood where opportunity was scarce, but doubt was abundant. His childhood was a daily reminder of the obstacles stacked against him. School books that were outdated, classrooms too crowded, and voices around him that constantly whispered, "You won't make it." But Marcus had something those voices couldn't kill, a relentless fire. As a boy, he watched his mother juggle multiple jobs, holding the family together with grit and prayer. His father had been absent, swallowed by the streets, but his mother's strength carved determination into Marcus's bones. He carried groceries for neighbors, shoveled snow in the winter, mowed lawns in the summer, anything to earn a few dollars. Every coin saved was a brick in the foundation of his dreams. When others laughed at his ambition, Marcus studied harder. When they mocked his dreams of business ownership, he drowned them out with late nights at the library, reading books on finance and leadership. College wasn't easy. He worked shifts at gas stations, scrubbed floors, stocked shelves, even washed cars in lots much like the one he would later own. He wore exhaustion like a second skin, but every hour of labor sharpened his resolve. By his 20s, Marcus was flipping small houses, learning how money moved and multiplied. By his 30s, he owned multiple businesses, real estate, logistics, tech investments. Each success was earned, not given. And by 40, he was a multimillionaire who carried his wealth not as a banner of pride, but as proof that resilience could break chains. Yet Marcus never lost the humility that shaped him. He remembered the sting of being underestimated, the weight of being dismissed before he spoke a word. And though his bank accounts were full, he knew prejudice had a way of ignoring balance sheets. The car dealership he had just acquired was a prime example. A struggling branch, profits bleeding, plagued by poor leadership and toxic culture. Marcus saw potential where others saw failure. Through his holding company, he purchased it quietly, the ink on the papers drying just days before. Today was his first visit, not as a man announcing power, but as an observer. He wanted to see the culture, the heartbeat of the place, before reshaping it. That morning, he drove not a flashy sports car, but a clean black sedan. He walked through the dealership's shining glass doors with only a leather folder in hand. Inside that folder were the ownership documents, proof that every car, every desk, every paycheck under that roof was now under his authority. But to the staff, he was just another man in a suit. The dealership hummed with its daily rhythm. Salesmen hovered like hawks, waiting to swoop on customers. Engines gleamed under lights designed to make them irresistible. The air smelled of polish and new leather. Customers whispered, calculating monthly payments in hushed tones. Marcus stepped in calmly, his gaze sweeping the floor. But heads began to turn. His presence drew eyes, not because of what he carried, but because of who he was. Too calm, too composed, too black for the image some carried in their minds of what wealth looked like. Richard, the dealership manager, spotted him. Tall, broad-shouldered, slick hair, an expensive watch flashing under the lights. He carried arrogance like cologne, thick and suffocating. To him, Marcus wasn't a customer. He wasn't even a prospect. He was an inconvenience. Richard stormed forward, voice raised for all to hear. "Hey, you don't belong here!" The words sliced the air. Conversations halted mid-word. Keys stopped jingling. Customers looked up, startled. Marcus stood tall, unmoving. His folder rested calmly against his side. His silence grew heavier with each passing second. Richard's arrogance swelled. He jabbed his finger at the door. "Out! Before I call security." His tone wasn't just rude, it was dripping with the poison of prejudice. His words carried the assumption that Marcus couldn't possibly belong in a place that sold six-figure cars. Employees watched. One smirked, another shifted uncomfortably. A young salesman looked like he wanted to speak, but swallowed his words, fear of Richard silencing his conscience. Customers whispered, their faces twisted in disbelief, but none intervened. Marcus's grip on his folder tightened. He could have pulled the documents out right then, ended the charade in seconds. But Marcus wasn't impulsive. He believed in timing. He believed in letting arrogance expose itself fully before crushing it. So he turned, calmly, slowly, and walked out. Gasps followed him. To some, it looked like defeat. To Richard, it looked like victory. He smirked, chest puffed, and strutted back across the floor, bragging about keeping the place professional. He didn't realize the man he had thrown out wasn't leaving in shame. He was leaving in strategy. Hours passed. The staff gathered in the conference room for an emergency meeting. Word had spread. Corporate had sent the regional director to introduce the dealership's new owner. Anxiety buzzed in the air. Salesmen whispered guesses about who it might be. Richard stood front and center, tie adjusted, hair smoothed, confidence glowing. He imagined himself impressing the new boss, positioning for promotion. The doors opened, footsteps echoed, and Marcus walked in. The room froze. Chairs scraped as people shifted in disbelief. Eyes widened. The man Richard had humiliated, the man he had thrown out like a trespasser, now stood before them as the new owner. Marcus walked calmly to the front, placed his folder on the table, and opened it. Ownership documents gleamed under the fluorescent lights, his name etched across every page. Silence suffocated the room. Richard's face drained of color, his smirk collapsing into panic. Marcus didn't need to speak. His presence thundered louder than any words. His eyes swept the room and finally landed on Richard, calm, unflinching, letting silence crush him. The regional director confirmed it. Marcus Bennett was now the owner, effective immediately. The words landed like a hammer. Richard stammered, tried to apologize, his arrogance now reduced to desperation. But Marcus remained silent. His silence was the final verdict. Within days, Richard was stripped of his position. His downfall was swift. Employees whispered his name as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how arrogance blinds and prejudice destroys. His office was emptied, his title erased, his power dissolved. Marcus rebuilt the dealership brick by brick. He implemented policies rooted in respect. Training programs reinforced dignity. Toxic culture was replaced with professionalism. Customers noticed the difference. They felt welcomed, valued. Sales climbed. Trust grew. Employees learned quickly. Respect was not optional. It was mandatory. Marcus didn't gloat about that day. He didn't retell the humiliation he endured. He focused on building, on leading, on proving that ownership wasn't about ego. It was about vision. He showed that true power doesn't scream. It doesn't boast. It stands tall in silence and lets the truth reveal itself at the right time.